Tree Talking Time is brought to you by Conkey's Outdoors and Stone Creek Hound Supply. Be sure to check them out for all your hound hunting needs. Welcome to Tree Talking Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest feists to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
Well, I've been in the horse business all my life. Been a horseshoer. 30 years I've shot horses.
Okay.
And yeah, had some really nice horses over the years.
I know quite a few horseshoers that are coon hunters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's pretty much all I've done. I traded a lot of horses. In 90, I kind of quit shoeing.
Okay.
And went to just buying and selling. I've sold horses all over the world, I guess you'd say. They've been here from Germany and Italy and France. Wow. Yeah, I had a pretty good horse operation going here.
That's awesome.
And that's basically about all I've done. Horsed around, I guess you'd say.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Horsed around during the day and then coon hunted at night, huh?
Yeah, I bird hunted a lot.
Okay. What kind of dogs you run when you bird hunted?
I had Llewellyn setters.
Okay.
And that's how I found Jug. I had a friend that was an older gentleman in Illinois that came over here every fall, and he had some outstanding bird dogs. Just outstanding. But they were droppers. They were half Llewellyn setter and half pointer.
Mm-hmm.
Had a little black dog looked like Petey on Little Rascals. He called him Radar. And he was a crackerjack good one. And that guy would come over, and then at night, we'd coon hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So we stayed pretty busy. And I don't know, we'd come in 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock from bird hunting, eat a little supper, and take an hour nap, and then we'd hunt till 2 or 3 in the morning.
Man, burning the candle at both ends.
Oh my goodness. But that's how I found old Jug.
Okay.
He was the best dog man I'd ever personally met.
Okay, and he owned Jug?
He owned Jug.
Okay, who was that?
Jack Michaels.
Okay.
He bought him from John Clark, an old man up there that had raised a lot of dogs, leopards.
Yeah.
And John kind of had a truck and car dealer there, guy that had a lot of money and would furnish John the money to buy the best he could find. And old John, he raised a lot of leopard dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how I found him.
Okay.
Jack called me about some horses one day. I traded a lot of horses with this guy. He had a rodeo, string bulls and bucking bulls and saddle broncs. And had a big indoor arena there, Archview Stables in Illinois.
Man.
And put on a rodeo every weekend. But a real dog man. He's probably the best. Well, he is the best dog man I'd ever seen. He had a border collie. If he could ride, he would have. Smartest border collie I'd ever seen.
I've heard that about some border collies.
Oh, he had a good one. But he said he'd bought a young dog pup. He'd be out a few nights to go hunting. I said, well, give me a call. A week or two later, he called. And he always kept a mule. He rode a mule. I had a mule here, several mules.
Mm-hmm.
And we went hunting, and on the mules, 2 of my buddies came over, John Henry from Troy and Levi Kirshner. And we went over at the river bottoms and hills. And I had a really top-notch little English female, red,
okay,
thick little bitch. And my buddy had a dual grand dog that won a lot of money, male dog, 3-year-old, nice dog. We cut them things loose. Old Pepper, my bitch, she didn't go 50 yards over. We still hadn't even got on the mule. We just unloaded them, and dogs were gone, and she located and treed. We went over, and John's dog came in and backed her, and had a coon. So I handed the gun to John Henry. I said, "Go ahead and knock that coon out to her." 2 dogs, his and mine, and he shot about 15 times. He had to reload the gun, and he kept shooting and shooting. And Levi said, "Where's your dog, Jack?" I said, "I don't know. He's around somewhere." He said, "Well, he ain't gun shy, is he? Because we're shooting so darn much." And he said, he'll be around. So we got that coon down and strung him up and went up on top of the ridge. Well, right over the ridge was old Jug sitting over there, and just a cow. Rode over to him, and he had a coon. Shot it out to 11 months old.
Okay.
11 months old.
That's pretty impressive, hold that much pressure.
I couldn't believe it. We went on the top of the ridge, riding along, and John's dog struck, and Pepper fell in with him. They treed again. Same deal. Went to that tree. And about that time, we heard old Jug on down the other side of the ridge to the left, and he started to track, and we shot that coon out to him and rode on down the ridge in, and he was treed, and went in there and had another coon. And I just never said much, and we cut them loose again. And well, they crossed the creek, got in pretty big creek area, and had a big 10-foot bank straight up. And
oh, geez.
So we got off the mules there on the sandbar, and they was sitting over there across a kind of an open bottom field. There's a hill over there, a ridge, and other side of it probably a 40-acre patch. And Jack said, "Well, I'll go to them," because all we could hear was Pepper and Jug. John's dog wasn't there. Mm-hmm. And he went over there. We gave him the gun. He went over there, and he shot around several times. And I stood up and watched him coming back across that field, and all of a sudden he was shooting again. He killed a 20-pound boar coon, but Pepper and Jug were split. He said about 15, 20 yards apart. They each had a coon.
Nice.
And but the coon, he was carrying him back, trying to lead them 2 dogs. And John's dog come into us there at the bank, and John just snapped him. And on the way back, that coon come to life. He had to shoot him again on the ground. I guess he had a heck of a time. But that was the end of that night, and we come on in, and I got to think about that darn pup. Drove me crazy. I told him, I said, well, he went home. He went on home that night back to Illinois. And I called him there too, and I said, "Come on out and bring that old pup. We'll hunt again." "All right," he said, "I'll come out." Well, he come out here, and I went right across in front of my house down here, and actually turned the dogs loose right here in front of the house, and they went down this fence row and went in there, and Jug and Pepper and just Jack and I was out that night, and Pepper opened to the right, Jug opened to the left, and I can't remember who treed first, but they split again, and each of them had a coon.
Nice.
So I said, "You want to go to your pup first?" "Nah," he said, "he won't go nowhere." Because Pepper was closer to us walking in there, and I just petted her up, and she had a coon. I petted her. I didn't kill it because that pup was treed on down there, old Jug. And we get down there, and he had a coon. Matter of fact, he had 2 coons, I believe, best I can remember, up the same tree, and he was a tree dog. And
was he chop mouth on tree or ball, or what was his?
Oh, had a long dying ball, and if he gave 2 of them, just cocked the gun.
Okay.
Usually 1, but sometimes 2, and kind of a squall and ball on track. Didn't say a lot. but he was extremely fast on a track. I never saw one like him before, and I have never seen one since. And I've hunted with a lot of good dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, the boy from Georgia just met a boy from Iowa here. 3 weeks ago, and give $35,000 for a 2-year-old Walker dog that he bought and took back to Georgia. Greg Mitchell. He's getting into the night hunts,
mm-hmm.
and nice young dog. And the closest thing that I've seen, I mean, he just goes and trees a coon.
Yeah.
He don't care what the other dogs are doing. He don't split. Don't leave. He'll split and stay hooked and
mm-hmm.
hard every breath tree dog. But Jug had that locate and die and locate and just roll it over to a hard, steady chop.
Okay. Nice.
Never saw him leave a tree in my life. Charles Thornhill was with me from John Henry one night, and Charlie's dog and John's dog ran by Jug. Jug was treed, and they went within 40 yards, 50 yards of him, and that Charlie couldn't believe it. And him and I walked on in there, and old Jug had a coon there. He very accurate, very accurate. Wouldn't say that he didn't miss, because I'm sure he did. I don't remember it, but boy, you could just count on seeing coon. He was so fast on the ground. Them coons, I've had him up fence post. I even had him one night in a Milo field. He was racing in there after one, and when he treed in the middle on a pair of telephone poles that had a crossbar, wooden cross.
Yeah.
There was 3 coons on that crossbar. I guess the others climbed up there when the race was going on, and just exceptionally fast.
Yeah.
Drift, and never knew where he's at. Boy, you cut him loose, he'd throw rocks, leaving, and go start a track. Could be in front of you, to the left, to the right, maybe behind you.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, 'cause that's all pre-Garmin days.
Oh my goodness, if I'd had a Garmin then. Yeah, I'd be a lot better shape than I'm in. Walked.
Yeah.
I had an old Johnson tracking system that with the antennae unfolded and held up in the air, I wished I'd had a Garmin back in them days.
What year did you get Jug?
He was 7 when I sold him to Wick, and I sold him to Wick. Man, I'm trying to think. Yeah, about 2000, my son said.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought.
He died in 2006. About 2002, I think John only had him 4 years.
Okay.
And he was 7 years old, John boy.
Yeah.
I didn't want to sell him, wasn't trying to sell him. But I was breeding a few jips to him, and I bought several jips. I never could find a really good, what I would call a real top female.
Yeah.
But Doc Rasmussen over here at Troy was a big-time leopard man.
Okay.
And he had a jip called Maggie. He was a nice little dog. He came over. I think he bred to him 3 times.
Okay.
And he's the one got me to take him to a hunt. I'd never been to a hunt. I took him to my first hunt. I think I won second.
Very nice.
And I beat myself. He treated a coon or 2, and the other dogs by. Then he treated in a hedgerow, what we call hedgerows out here in Missouri. They make fence posts out of them old hedge trees, and they're all entangled. And
yeah.
And we went in there, and the nicest man was a Walker judge in the cast. And we got there and couldn't find the coon. Well, I seen the coon walking in. Coon was down about 25, 30 yards, 2 trees down.
Mm-hmm.
And I never said nothing. We just leashed him, and they minused him there. Coming in, he said, boy, that's a nice little dog. He said, I've never hunted with one of them. And the old gentleman was from Oklahoma, I believe. And he said, it's a shame he didn't have a coon. I said, well, he had one, but it was sitting down 2 or 3 trees. He said, I wish you'd have showed it to me. He said, we could have scored that coon in that kind of situation where them trees are all together.
Yep, where they're all touching.
Yeah, and I didn't know that. I didn't know nothing. I just knew to strike him when he barked, and when he treed, I'd tree him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd hunted him. Oh, I didn't summer hunt a lot back then, but I'd go occasionally, once every week or two, you know.
Yeah.
And but I hunted hard. I hunted every night and all night in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go to Iowa and hunt up there for a week because they open a week earlier than we do here. And I'd camp up there with some friends of mine. I'd hunted him up there and killed a lot of coons. He just shined in Iowa. Those coons up there were a lot easier to tree than they are here. But I think he treed, I think we killed 18, 20 coons one night with him. And the kid that I took with me, his dad was a friend of mine. And we kept our mules in the barn. And he was a horseman, his dad. Mm-hmm. Kid had a young dog there. And we got that young dog started real good.
I'd say so.
Yeah. He was just an exceptionally one in a million. I don't ever look to have another one like him.
Yeah.
Love to. But a lot of people saw that dog, hunted with that dog.
Yep. Now,
I had 3 guys. Go ahead.
You said you put him in a hunt. I'm guessing that was probably a PKC hunt if you were hunting with a walker guy.
No, the guy was a walker. He judged the walkers at Ada and big time judge.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Walker deals.
I got you.
And no, I never had him. Now, Wick put him in a couple of PKCs just shortly after he got, 2 weeks after he got him. And I went with him to the first one. He said, you need to go along, see how this works.
Yeah.
But he won 2 or 3 of those PKCs right in a row. I went to 2 of them, I believe, with John. And the third one he went by himself, but he won all 3 of them.
Gotcha. No, I was just thinking because I'm sure when you owned him that leopards were still registered with UKC as curs.
Right.
That's why I was thinking when you said walker guy, I thought you were hunting against him.
No, I've hunted him against a lot of walkers. Wendell Kanzler came here, lives in Buffalo, Missouri, and he had Bennett Springs Bandit, Bennett Springs Alibi, had some really top walker dogs. He was working up here on a lake north of us. They built a construction guy, and he'd heard about it, and he called me and wanted to know if he could go hunting. Never had any idea of what kind of dog I had. I just told him, somebody told him I was hunted a lot. So him and I got together, and he went with him. He was pretty impressed. He come back in a couple of days and wanted to go again, and we went again. And next thing I know, he had a buddy from Oklahoma with a silver champion female, walker. And he told that boy, Buddy Licklider was his name. He said, you need to go with this cur dog Carr's got up here. And they thought she was in heat when they brought her, but she wasn't. She wouldn't let him cover. And anyway, we went hunting that night, and he treed across pretty good wide, not a river, but a big creek. And I could see the coon from the bank on the other side. We standing there. And they had 2 walker dogs. And those dogs were standing there barking at the water. And Wendell got on them. He said, well, them dogs' boots must leak. Because they wasn't going to cross that water, you know. And luckily, I shot that coon across that creek. And Jug was a poor kill dog. He wasn't very good at killing them. He wallered around too much and got a hold of the wrong end usually. Anyway, I see that coon looking at me as far. I got him right between the eyes, and he fell out. That dog swam that creek and brought that coon to the bank on the other to us, right to where we was at.
Man.
And that was kind of unbelievable.
Yeah.
I got him in Oklahoma, I believe, or maybe southwest Missouri down there, the leopard hunt I took him to. And there's a mean dog in the cast out of Oklahoma is what it was. And we could hear that jug treeing really good. And he was in there a good little ways, but he was a lot louder than the other 2 or 3 dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to that tree. That judge said something about he heard a little rumbling in there. And I said, yeah, I did too. But I knew he never growled at another dog. He was 15 foot up in that tree. He got away from that mean dog.
Oh, jeez.
And climbed that tree. I had to get a kid climb up there and get him because he was out kind of hanging over the edge of the creek there. Pretty good sized creek. And that kid got him out of there for me. But he's just one of a kind.
Yeah.
I bought a full sister to him and a full brother to him. And they were zeros to me.
Okay.
Now, the sister, they claimed they killed 200 coons with her that past winter. And I just bought her like a darn fool. And I turned her loose out here. The first night I turned her loose, she got in a skunk den. And I gave her the window canceller. I said, here, I give $1,000 for her just on their word. Well, she wasn't my cup of tea. So the male dog was about the same too.
Gotcha.
We went to Iowa and we took the black. He was a coal black, one of them. Clark called them black diamonds.
Yeah.
Looked like a Labrador color.
Yeah.
Oh, good looking dog. Had a nice mouth. He treated a coon right off the get-go. We was riding the mules up this old road, and the other boys had went off in another truck. They was walking. John Henry and I was on the mule. That dog treated a coon. I thought, boy, this is good. First time I'd hunt him. Never treated another one the rest of the night. I hunted him 2 or 3 more nights, and he was a zero.
Gotcha.
But
well, since you said you just bought a littermate brother and sister, I do have a question. I've heard, I don't really know much. You know, Jug's pedigree was not correct, and then it got corrected down the road. Is that correct?
Right.
So when you owned him, was that the correct pedigree or not?
No.
Okay.
No. Old man Clark, he claims that he had 2 male dogs there.
Mm-hmm.
Had a dog called Blue that supposedly was the real dad to Jug, and I'd say he was. He resembled Blue. Then he had a dog with a little bit of white on him, quite a little bit of white. He'd breed a bitch to both them dogs when she's in. He said, I can tell which pup's which. And I never thought nothing about it. I didn't care. You know, I didn't care if he didn't have no favors.
Yeah.
I just always liked a good dog, and I liked something different. Like that little English female, I bought her off a guy named Ross Porter in North Missouri that had a lot of them leopard dogs back years ago.
Okay.
He sold a lot of them to an old gentleman out in the east there. Oh boy, I can't think of his name. I'm blank. But he didn't. He said, I never liked that old man, but he said when he showed up, he always had the money. And he had a dog, he said the years before that, named Saturday. There was a blue tick crossed up dog. And he bragged on how good a dog he was. But when we got there that night, I heard he had this English female. I called him. He said, yeah, he'd take $1,000 for her. And we drove up there. He had a house, a little small house, white fence around it, just a little country house. I never saw as many antiques in a house. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Like he probably had 15 of them little Model 42 Winchester 410 pumps on a wall. He had that blue and white wash bowl and picture sets with all the he had more antiques than I'd ever seen in my life. And I asked him, I said, What about old Pepper? She's laying on his couch. He had a blanket on the end of the couch. She's curled up there. She was an own daughter of Cherry Creek Drifter. Well, John Henry, my hunting partner, had hunted against Cherry Creek Drifter in Iowa at a money hunt. And he said, boy, he was a good hound. He said, now I tried to buy him. Said he bid him $6,500 for him back there, and that was a ton.
Oh, yeah.
And John Henry had a lot of money. He dealt in real estate and poured concrete. He was particular, and money didn't matter. He'd give whatever it took, man. Anyway, I was wanting a rig dog. I said, will Pepper free a coon out of the back of the truck? Oh, yeah. He said, yeah, she'll strike a coon out of the back and tree it. And he said, she's not near as good as that pair of calico dogs, he called them.
Okay.
I said, what'd you do with them? He said, I just sold them 2 weeks ago. He said, some railroad engineer from Hannibal, Missouri, come over and bought them both. He said, now when they struck in the back of the truck, he said, they were already treed. He said, they knew right where that coon was at and jump out and go right to it and set. He said, they were outstanding. So on the way home, and it is a long ways up there, northwest Missouri, I got a speeding ticket right off the get-go. John Henry was laughing and sitting over there. And so we get over here close to where I live, off 10 miles out. There's a gravel road hooks around and comes right out here close to the house. I said, let's try this little jip on the back of the box. And this is God's truth. She treed 5 coons in that gravel road coming around, and we come right by the Wick's farm out there. Matter of fact, we treed one at the entrance that goes back, lane goes back in right by his mailbox, the last coon. And I put her in the box, and I got up there at the stop sign to get on the hard road to come to my house. John Henry went swearing at me. I said, what have I done to make you mad at me? He said, you're the luckiest son of a gun I've ever seen in my life. He said,
Yeah.
I'd sure like to seen them calico dogs. But she was a good one. She was a nice little jip. Didn't hunt as hard, wasn't as fast as Jug, but boy, she'd locate thick coons. She'd just get them all.
Mm-hmm.
She was a sweetheart. I just loved her. And I got her killed up in Iowa.
Oh.
Went over, she climbed the fence and had that gaucho wire, and it opened her from her throat to her rear end. 280 stitches. I took her in my coat to the vet and carried her and got her to the vet, and he sewed her up and put her on antibiotics, but not near enough, not strong enough. And she healed up, but she died
Man.
about a week later. I was just
That's
sick
rough.
over that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've been fortunate, and I had an awful good dog after Jug. Soft mouth,
What was
didn't have
that?
enough. He was a walker dog, and he was out of some famous dog up in the north. I can't think of the breeding anymore. I just got old and brain dead. But
Hey, you've remembered a lot of very detailed things, so you're definitely not brain dead by any means.
well, I can't remember like I used to. There's a pair of brothers that hunted this male walker dog up in the north, Michigan, Minnesota, something.
Okay.
Really a top dog. I'll think of it maybe. But anyway, he was out of that dog, and everybody said that dog was rough and missed a lot. But my dog didn't. My dog that I bought out of him, I bought him when he was a 2, and bought him off Charlie Thornhill. Got him from his uncle. He already had 2 first and a second in the hunts. And Charlie he had the papers when he came over here. I had the dog on trial. I hunted against him one night. He left him, said, you can hunt him, Carr. Hunt him a couple of weeks if you want. And I hunted him the next night with my wife, and he treed 3 coons in a row right down here. I said, that's enough. I've seen enough. I called him. I didn't call him. I was sitting here at the house, and he called me. He said, Carr, he said, I'm headed your way. I said, where you at? He said, just down the road from your house. He said, I'll pick that dog. I said, no, I'm going to buy your dog. And he said, "You don't want that dog." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, hell, he's just 2 years old." He said, "He won't suit you. He needs to be finished." I said, "He's finished enough for me." And he pulled in the driveway and come in the house. Well, he threw them papers, and there's the wind slips in that envelope. He hadn't even looked at them. And that was an awful good. I hunted that dog till he was 6, and Wick sold that dog. Told some boy in Illinois, "Come over here one bad night, and that dog treated 3 coons in a blizzard, sleeting and snowing.
Yeah.
Treat a layup and a running coon, and just a nice dog."
Nice.
But I've just been fortunate. But I've been picky. What I like's what I like. I don't like a dog with a lot of mouth. I don't like a dog that snozzles on the ground. That Jug never put his head on the ground. He was a heads-up track dog.
Yeah.
He caught 22 coons on the ground one winter, coon hunting. I think when it was 3 or 4 year old year. Matter of fact, some guys I was going to tell you came to go hunting with him on the scene. One said they might want to breed a female. He caught 3 coons on the ground in a creek bed going up this creek before he ever treed one. That one guy said, "Does he ever tree one?" I said, "Yeah." Finally, around the edge of that big rim where we walked a circle around the cornfield and the creek, he come treed in there and did a good job.
Yeah.
But Wendell Canceler's a living that hunted with him a lot.
Okay.
A lot of them guys are gone.
Yeah.
John Henry's gone, and Levi died here 4 or 5 months ago. And the guys that really hunted a lot with him, Charlie Thornhill's still living. Charles, he can tell about him.
Okay.
He was impressed. We went in behind. Mac McAllister had a dog called Banjo. I think Wick bought that dog when he got older. But I was over Troy, and John Henry and I met Charlie, and McAllister come down the road and said, "I've already been in there." And Charlie said, "You tree coons?" And he said, "Yeah, a couple." We sent old Jug up through there. We killed 7 coons up that holler after he'd already been up it a couple hours earlier that evening.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he was a nice dog.
Now, you said you bred him a few times. Did you ever keep any of the pups out of him?
Yeah, but I'm not much with pups.
Okay.
Them little pups, I kept a couple out of him. I raised one litter. I bought a jit that I really kind of liked. She didn't hunt very big. I bought her off of Sam Pendleton's buddy, Buster Barnett. Little black and tan leopard female. Real tree dog, real locator, not much hunt. So, first night I took her, we pulled up over there, and John's dog struck in there, and I had another dog. It struck in there, and he said, "Where's Ruby?" was her name. He said, "Where's Ruby?" I said, "I don't know." About that time, they come treating an old slough up here just not far from us, and I turned around and looked, and Ruby was sitting in the four-wheeler. John left his door open. She was sitting up in the seat right in the four-wheeler. I looked around. He looked around. He saw that, and he went busted out. You had to know this John Henry. He had the biggest squall laugh. He just bellered. "Oh, boy," he said, "you've got yourself a problem now." And but we didn't. We fanned her a time or two, and she'd go hunting. Not big, but 200 or 300 yards around. And a real nice, I bred her. I raised a female, pretty blue leopard. I named her Sarah Palin. I named there was a leopard male. I named him John McCain, Sarah Palin, and the third one I named Obama. And Obama was the best of the 3, but I sold them all. I'd have a finished coon dog, and I didn't have the patience to mess with one that needed a lot of hunting,
Yeah.
I'd rather be hunting a good dog that I liked. And they were nice pups. They started, and they'd run and tree. And that's probably the only 3 I ever just kept back for a while. But I sold 3 or 4 litters of them pups.
Okay.
So
he was bred a little bit before John got him, then.
Before Wick got him, yeah. Wick bred him to a Walker Gyp.
Yeah.
And that might have been one of the best crosses. Now, McDill had the very best cross on that dog. They brought a female up here from Mississippi and hunted him. They hunted Jug one night. Old man John McDill.
Yep.
And that cross produced that black dog down there, Johnny Red.
Yep.
I tried to buy him.
Okay.
And Wick went down there, and I told Wick, I said, boy, you can get that dog, we need to get him. And he went hunting, and that kid was 12 or 13 years old, and he wanted to hunt that night with him. But he said he acted just like Jug. He just didn't know it. Everybody was a friend to him. He'd just lay around and quiet until dark. When you got ready to cut him loose, he'd fly in there and get treed and had a real mouth and a nice dog. But they wouldn't sell him, and they fooled around, let him. Somebody stole him, or he got away and got run over. They never did find him.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I had him, but
yeah, I had a friend of mine lived in Mississippi for a while, and she had some leopards, and she'd take, one of her leopards to a hunt, and she said everyone that saw a leopard, the first thing they would say, "Oh, is that dog, got any of that Johnny Reb blood in it? That Johnny Reb dog was great," and so.
I think he was. Randy McDill was probably the hardest hunter of all them guys. And old man John had a dog called Scooter. Mm-hmm. There was a litter mate to Johnny Reb, but I think he was more of a locate and hunt around you dog, where Johnny Reb would take a track like old Jug. He'd go hunting. It didn't make no difference what kind of track. Yeah. He's going to tree that coon. Now that's my understanding from Randy, and I talked to that Randy quite a lot. He had an awful good female out of that cross. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, he kept her till she died, and they say that somebody left a check there for $10,000. Anybody wanted to challenge her. Now that's the story I've been told. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Randy or that old man John or any of them would tell you wrong. Yeah. I think they was good people, honest, and they was impressed. But I don't know.
I know a lot of big game guys like the Jug Sparkling Susie cross, and a lot of them have line bred, inbred dogs off of that cross out in like the western states for big game.
Right. There was a male dog that went out there, a black dog, black and tan dog, and he ended up back here in Illinois. His guy didn't like him on the cats. And that dog, they say, was a nice coon dog.
Yeah.
I can't think of that dog's name.
Bolt.
Bolt, there you go.
Yep.
They say that was a pretty nice coon dog now. I've been told that.
Yeah, a friend of mine actually lives in Montana and said he'd hunted with him on cats. He goes, he threw some great pups, but he said he just really wasn't all that impressive himself. So, like you said, it sent him back east and turned into a great coon dog.
Well, I never did have Jug run a cat. He run a coyote one night when he was 2 years old. I went over to Troy and met Henry and Levi. And we cut him loose in a piece of timber, and there's a highway over there about a mile, I guess. And there's a fox pen on the other side of that highway. And that Jug struck in there, and he drifted around, opened again, and he got to turning on the heat pretty good. I said, "What do you think, Levi?" He said, "I think he's showing them foxhounds over there how to run one." I went in there and caught him. And I scolded him, pulled his ear. I never beat that dog. Never had to beat him. He just cowed down. You tell you're breaking his heart when you cussed him out, And on the way in, back to them guys, they stayed at the truck. He reared up on the leash, throwed his head around, opened, and I just unsnapped him. He went over 30, 40 yards and sat out and had a coon. I caught him. I didn't take the gun. I just padded him up. And I didn't go, 100 yards, and he done the same thing again. treed 2 coons going back to the truck after he'd run them coyotes. Them coons crawled up, I guess, when he was running that coyote in there.
Yeah.
I had him trail a skunk one night. I was by myself, and I was walking with a big stick. I had a big, heavy stick, and I looked down ahead of me on this little old ditch, had a little water in it, and I smelt this skunk. About that time, he opened behind it and run right up there, pretty close. Skunk went on, but I screamed and hollered at him, reared back and throwed that big club, and never in my life would I hit him broadside again like that. That club, he cowed down and come right to me. I scolded him. Now, Wick claims he treated a possum or 2 for him, but I do know he treated a possum one night on the river. And I never seen him treat another possum from that time on to when Wick got him. Now, John's a real good friend of mine, but John's always got to get a little credit for training one. Well, he was already trained when he bought him. I can tell him that.
Gotcha.
And he wasn't a foolproof one at the beginning, but never was bad. Never. Yeah. I mean, anybody could live what he done wrong.
Yeah.
Hunted too hard for them old guys over there, had that Leopard breed club. They just hated for me to show up. Matter of fact, I won second over one night at, I believe, Tilden, Illinois. And there's a guy named Jerry Daniels, and he didn't like John Clark. And he was walking up and giving out trophy to first place, shook his hand. He just set mine on the ground in front of me and went on to the next guy. I didn't care. I knew what I had, and I knew what they had.
Yep.
And Mike Ridenauer was a really good fella, lived down south of him. He had that doll female. And she's a little black and tan female. She grubbed too much. Wouldn't finish a track. She tackled too tough a track, but would tree a coon. Mm-hmm. He come up here, had a guy with him named Tubby. He said was his banker. I guess his Tubby had a lot of money. And we took old Jug that night. I think 3, 4, 5 coons. He looked like $1 million. Couldn't have looked no better. They laid $6,500 on the hood of a truck to buy him. I said, I ain't gonna sell you that dog now. I said, forget it. Well, they bought a litter mate to him, supposedly.
Yeah.
But that dog had a lot of white on him. And my buddy Wendell Kanzler had him first, went and got him. That Wendell bought 20 of them leopards trying to find one that can beat, even close to him. He just hung them a little while and get rid of them. But anyway, when Wendell had him, that dog was an automatic strike dog off the end of the tailgate, just barked every time his foot hit. I just hated him.
Yeah.
They won the world hunt with him. And then they sold him, and then I heard that guy hated him so much he shot and killed him.
Daggone.
Now, that's the story I heard. I don't know that, but I do know Mike Ridenauer was a good guy, and Old Doll won the world championship. She was in my cast. I was in her cast, I guess I should say. And that was at Tilden, Illinois, I believe.
Okay.
But they cheated me there. I'd treat him, and he was in there a good quarter or a little more. He was across the river. We was all walking to him, and Old Doll, she just lobbered around. She never would go hunting and ever get a strike. But when we come through there, I guess Kitten Coon crawled up because we was on the way to him. And she treed right behind us. So we stopped, and they turned around. They went back, and they scored her on that coon. And we got to darn near to the river. And they said, well, the hunt's over. And a kid that was in the cast, nice kid, he said, I'll go get him for you, Mr. Carr. And I said, well, I appreciate that. I'll give him my leash. He come back and said, he had 3 coons up one tree. but the hunt was over.
What kind of rules are those? The dogs.
I have no idea, but that's what they done to me. And I'm trying to think of that kid's name.
Dogs treat before hunt time's over. You go score it.
Well, hunt's over, they said when we got to the river. Time's up, hunt's over. And we fooled around, turned around, wasted 10 or 15 minutes walking back. 5 minutes back, and then they stood there for 5 or 10 minutes, and old Jug sitting across the river, or just cow, 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 cow. And I knew, but I didn't know nothing. I didn't know the rules. Hell,
Yeah.
I'm a dummy when it comes to that wild coon hunts. I didn't know nothing. Doc Rasmussen just talked me into taking him and putting him in some of them hunts. I took him to Claude. Somebody had a cur and feist.
Claude Thomas in Elnora, Indiana.
Yes, sir. I went all the way up there, got a motel room, and Rick Stretch, who at that time was working for Wick before he got into the trouble he got into.
Yeah.
And I said, Stretch, why don't you hunt old Jug for? Okay, I'll hunt him. You know, Rick talked funny. His dad came over there and met us. And I went on the cast. Rick handled him. He treated him on a hillside. You can see it kind of in the sky, you know, old Jug standing on that tree. And a big blue leopard dog come in there and knocked him off that tree. And rolled him, and he jumped up and run back up to the other side and stayed back about 20 foot. And we went in with, 350 or 400 points. Well, the other cast was an hour late getting in. You're supposed to have been in there in so long, the time, you know, when the hunt was over.
Yeah.
They give you 30 minutes or whatever. Oh. And I got word later they called in, and they come in there with, 50 more points than what we had in our cast. So we got second at the curve last time. Got beat by a feist. But I didn't, you know, it ain't no sense arguing with them guys when they hate for you to show up anyway. So I just got sick of them. I just got sick of them over.
Yeah.
And I sold him to Wick, and then all the stuff started on the papers not being right. Well, he got John Clark come over and straighten him out the way he's supposed to be. And they re-registered him the right way.
Gotcha.
But a lot of guys hated that. Now, them guys, especially that little group around there, didn't go for it because they didn't like him and they didn't like me. Too much dog for them old guys. They talk about it. They be around there all day at one of them big deals. Come dark, you'd never see them. Most of them go to motels or somewhere. They wasn't in the hunt.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but there was probably 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. Dang sure didn't care for me or Jug.
Conkey's Outdoors is proud to be a sponsor of Tree Talking Time. Family, hunting, tradition is the Conkey's motto. They understand the importance of passing down the tradition of hound hunting. They are a family-owned business that treats you like family. They also understand the importance of having the gear you need when you need it. Conkey's carries everything for your next hunt, and it ships to your door quick. They also offer great warranties on all tracking systems and financing options. Check them out at conkeys.com. You can also use the code TreeTalkingTime5 in all caps to save as well.
I wish I could have seen him go, and you know, I'm kind of critical, and I'll be honest here with you, and in the listeners here. I tend to shy away from Jug bred dogs, and my reasoning is not actually Jug. My reasoning is Jug was the hot stud of the day when UKC changed leopards from curs to hounds.
Right.
And everybody wanted a dog out of Jug. And I think a lot of stuff that on paper says Jug today is junk, and the papers ain't worth what they're printed on. And I don't think that's John's fault. I don't think that's Jug's fault. I just think that there's a lot of junk within the leopard breed that happened right around 2008 to probably the next 3 or 4 years because everybody wanted a leopard dog. But everybody wanted a leopard dog to hunt like a hound because they said hound. So,
right.
And like I said, Jug was the big name. John was a big promoter, and That's just my opinion.
John never really he was sick, you know. He had a lot of bad health. He had brain surgery and back surgery, and at the time, right after he got him, he didn't get to go on and do what he wanted with that dog. But he got his paper, and that Ingram, I know, said any of those pups that came from here where I'd raised, he would change the papers on them.
Yeah.
And make them right after he got that right, which was good.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of junk. Now, I'm going to be real honest. I've only seen probably 5 to 10 of those leopards that I'd even own.
Okay.
I bought 2 females off of Buster and Sam Pendleton. Sam Pendleton was a leopard, man. He had that dog that won the Governor's Cup and was a hot rod of the day. He beat Rick Saflin with that Scout dog and won the Governor's Cup. They say that was a really good dog. I tried to buy a female out of him. An old gentleman had down there, but he wouldn't sell her. Kids hunted her. And Maggie was okay. She'd tree coons, not with the speed that some people would want, especially a competition. I didn't care about competition.
Yeah.
To me, it used to be really crooked. I think they've got it straightened around better. But I always had them good horses. I wouldn't buy a horse if I didn't think he was a good one. And I had my own vision and idea, my own picture of what I wanted. I had probably, I'm going to say 5, if not more, world champion halter horses.
Okay.
That I bought a mare when she's a Wingland colt. I sold her as a 2-year-old for $20,000. I give $2,500 for her as a Wingland. I won the state of Missouri with her in halter. She was undefeated, 12 shows, won all 12. Was grand champion over all ages, and that was tough to do. A mare called Sure Smooth Chick. I sold her for $20,000. They won the world championship with her 6 times. The only mare in history to ever walk in that world show 6 years in a row and be a world champion.
That's impressive.
And I was kind of that way about my dogs.
Mm-hmm.
That dog aggravate me. I take a little aggravation. I, try to cure them of whatever was wrong. Deer race, coyote race, whatever. But I wasn't going to spend my hunting season trying to make a dog better. He either had to have some right stuff or I'd get rid of them.
Gotcha.
And some of these guys in that leopard breed would talk about it. And Ron Gannis was going to come here 2 or 3 years in a row. Never showed up. I told him, welcome to come. Bring that good dog. I gave that McDonald and Gannis, I give him a male dog I'd bought that was out of jug. But he had big ears. He'd tree a coon, but if he's out there by himself, he'd stay. But if another dog barked over there somewhere, he'd leave the tree and go to him.
Yeah.
Back him, And I gave that dog to him. And 2 or 3 dogs, I give that McDougal or McDonald or something. He acted like, he acted like he knew everything about them leopard dogs. He put out so much malarkey. And then the guys around Illinois, of course, they all had them pure leopards. They were pure leopards. They made their biggest mistake by not backing that wick and really trying to promote the leopard breed. I think the leopard breed, until Jason called me, it's pretty much, you don't see much out of them.
Not a lot. They don't get pushed in the hunts by any means.
Well, I don't think a lot of them leopards are hunt material. Now, some of them, if you got the right cross, like Johnny Reb and that Jip that Randy had, I know there's some that can do it. But the majority, like the 2 females I bought to breed, one was a little tree dog, but she sat back 15 foot off the tree and sat on her butt and bark up. And Didn't have a good mouth. Pretty little bitch. And okay. The tree coons. The other one had a real mouth and was a really good looking leopard female. And I sold her to a guy. And I knew she'd treat coons. I'd hunt her a night or two, and she was okay. Well, he gets her. He's going to put her in the world hunt. He just loved her. He never seen one like her, and he had several leopard dogs around. I'm not going to say who it was, but I thought, oh my goodness, Jug'd leave her a mile and a half behind on a running coon. I promise you.
Yeah.
But I just was amazed by him.
Yeah.
And I begged Wick to collect him. I said, "Man, you need to get semen out of that dog." But there was some culls. I had some of them that were culls out of. Not everything. I think his grandpups, I think actually are better than what he was as a producer.
Okay.
They produced better than he did.
Gotcha.
But I had ragtag females. Maggie was the only good gyp that I saw, other than them boys in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know that gyp you're talking about. That Sparkling Susie, is that supposed to be Gannis's bitch or something?
I forget what she was out of. I'd have to go look it up. I don't remember what she was out of, but I know, well, Dan McDonough was the one that he inbred them dogs a lot, and then they ended up out west. But I've heard from 2 or 3 guys out west that said they're phenomenal cat dogs.
Really? Sparkling Susie.
Like I said, I'd have to go look and see how she was bred. I don't even remember.
I remember the name at the time. I'm not so sure that Gannis might have raised her. But I'm not sure. I don't remember. I mean, like I said, I'm old and my memory's not as good as sharp as it was, and I got out of it. And I've got a dog here. I still hunt just a little rig hunt around these old roads. After they get the crops out, I'll drive around the edge of them fields. I was raised here. I'm 78 years old, and I know every farmer in this country, unless they sold the farm to the kids sold it to somebody out of the city or something.
Yeah.
Got a lot of hunting, good hunting, and got a lot of coons in this area, really.
Nice.
But I don't know. Sparkling Susie, I've heard of her, but I can't put her. I don't know what she's out of or where she came from, but I heard of that gyp.
Yeah. I'm looking through some stuff on my phone and I can't find. I thought I had it, but I don't.
I'd heard of Jason, the boy that told you to call me.
Yeah, Jason Keene.
I'd heard of that boy, and I'd heard he had some good dogs. Matter of fact, a guy up in Iowa, a policeman, young man,
Steve
he's got
Thomas.
a gyp. Yep, nicest guy I ever talked to.
Mm-hmm.
He called me and wanted to know about this and that and stuff. And I hate to say a lot. There's a lot that I know that these guys think they know, and they're wrong. They don't know. I tried to buy Jug's mother.
Okay.
Same guy I got Jug from had her. He got mad at her because she'd tree in the ground too much.
Mm-hmm.
And she wouldn't leave. She'd just stay and dig. And he sold her some boys over at Redbud, Illinois, and I called over and tried to get her off of them. They wouldn't lease her. They hunted her, and they liked her. She'd tree coons for them. And I guess she died on them. I never did hear no more. I called them 2 years in a row trying to get her off of them. But she was a little high tan, black and tan kind of colored bitch.
Okay.
Some tried to tell me she was a Stevens, Kerr, and I've heard all kinds of stories. But I did see her, and I don't know.
I've heard all kinds of stories too. That's why I was hoping you could set me straight.
Well, she was a tree dog and a good little old country coon dog, but she had her faults.
Yeah.
And they all do. I mean, they ain't none of them perfect. I've never seen a perfect one.
Yeah.
But she's not the way that some of them say that Jug's mother was. supposedly there's a walker back in her pedigree, but she sure didn't have no walker color.
Gotcha.
She just looked like a little high tan gyp to me, which had a few dominant darker spots on her.
Mm-hmm.
Now she made that. They some of them say, well, that's where them the black diamond that Clark supposedly said, that's where that black diamond come in. Well,
yeah,
maybe she was, Stephen. I don't know. Hell, them old papers back in them days, they just. But the way Jug was on his pedigree, now he was definitely by the Blue Dog, because a guy named Bobby Ralph, right on the Arkansas line, lived kind of on an island. And he had leopard dogs. He fooled with the guys in Oklahoma that had the black and tans. There was a kind of an Indian guy. I seen him making arrowheads in one of them hunts. He came with a black and tan gyp. I drew her in the cast. I beat her. But she was a nice little gyp. I can't think of them names anymore. There was two brothers that were into them dogs.
Okay.
But that Bobby Ralph bought Old Blue off of John Clark. I do know. He told me he gave John $5,000 for him. And he said, I had a blue dog here that I liked better. And he said, John whined and cried around and wanted him back. And he said, so I sold him back to him. But that's all I know is what I was told, And,
yeah.
There was a coach down there on the Missouri line that lived close to Bobby Ralph. Bobby's wife had a bad accident and got like $1 million settlement. And he got calling me. I'd sold him a pup or two out of old Jug, met him. And then now I've heard that he's gone and him and his wife had divorced, and I don't know. But he knew John real well. I didn't know John all that well. I'd been over there 2 or 3 times, but he was kind of a peculiar old guy.
Okay.
Really had them kennels, and I'm still trying to think of the man's name that backed him with the money. I want to say Essen Price, but that might not be right. But anyway, John go all over the country and just buy the best dog he could find. If he's heard of a good one, he'd go try to buy him for that old guy.
Yeah.
That car dealer wanted good ones, and they said he had several of them.
Gotcha.
But as far as the day John told me he'd breed a bitch to either one of them male stud dogs, Blue or that other dog, I thought, oh boy. Yeah, I can tell the difference, he said. I know which one's out of which. I'd never heard of that till that day. I told Jack Michaels, I said, he's crazy.
Yeah.
We left there.
What happens when it looks like the mother?
Yeah. I don't know. But Clark had quite I'd say 8 or 10, 15 dogs around there. Yeah. And really took care of them. Now, he did take care of them. He cleaned them pens 3 or 4 times a day if he needed to. I mean, he fed them good and kept them warm.
Yeah.
But I never did hunt with the daddy to him. Michaels did. Michaels said he took Jug with him the night he bought Jug. He said, that pup, put it on old Blue, I'd say. He said, old John couldn't hear nothing but Blue, but he said, I could hear that pup. And he tree ahead of him. Said, you could just hear that dog locating.
Yeah.
Said, what a tree dog. So that's all I know about the Blue part of it.
Gotcha.
And then when Jack got the mother, I went back over to Jack's, and he had already sold her, but he still had her there. They was coming to get her, boys from down there around Red Bud, Illinois. They were going to coon hunt her.
Mm-hmm.
But I did see her. She was a nice little female.
Yeah.
But
no, it's been interesting. Like I said, I know stories and stuff, but it's nice to actually hear about him. But like I told you, a buddy of mine bought a dog straight from John, really heavy line bred on Jug, and I will say he had a tremendous mouth. You would not have thought this 50-pound little high tan cur dog, by all accounts, would have such a big mouth. But he had a tremendous mouth.
Jug had a good mouth. Now, some of them, one night I come in from on a hunt, Rex Laker was on the cast. He had that bitch that they put in the Hall of Fame, little black and tan female. He was hunting her. I had her name the other day when I was talking to Jason, but I can't remember. We went to Jug Treat one night at the end of this ditch. This ditch was filled with trash, probably 2 blocks long. She was down under that trash bellering in there. We go to the tree. Before we get to the tree, a dog comes in, backs him, and it was Ebo, Archie Reardon's dog.
Yeah.
Go in there and I score Jug, and that Jip was in that ditch when we walked in. We walked back out and started back to the truck. She was still in the ditch, backtracking in there. Just, just a difference in people.
That's for sure.
They all like something different, and most of them old guys want one to hunt 30, 40, 50 yards around you and walk him around a little patch and then go home. At that time, I got to road hunting old Jug when he's about 5-year-old, I guess, ahead of the truck. That was the biggest mistake I ever made. He'd go through a section somewhere. If he didn't strike a coon, he'd hit a road. He'd start down that road.
Yeah.
And that come from that darn road hunting. I should have never done that. But he'd treat them coons ahead of that truck, too. I mean, I killed a truckload of coons to him off the road.
Sure.
He'd go hunting. He'd hunt too hard for most people. Back in that day, most all them guys didn't want one. I mean, you cut him loose now, he's going to tree a coon somewhere.
Yeah.
And it may be close, it may not. He'd go at a dead run to find a track, and he'd take that track and run it. We was sitting on the road one night up there North Missouri. Wendell Canceller was along. John Henry, Levi. There's 4 or 5 of us went up there. And the creek was down below us. We're sitting up on the gravel road, and we'd sent him in a cornfield there. And he struck at the end of that creek on the south end. And 2 or 3 barks was halfway up that creek. And they had 2 dogs on the ground with him. They opened in behind him. And he took that track to the north of that creek and backed into some big woods. We got in the truck and drove around and drove right into the tree. We had a big snag tree with a big coon.
Nice.
And here come them other 2 dogs after we had drove around and got out and shined. They come into that tree. They was on the same track. He just scattered dogs now. It was amazing to watch him run a trap, and it didn't make no difference if it was cold or hot. He run them all.
Yeah.
To catch. He would catch them coons. Couldn't do nothing with them. Waller around. I've had to save his life several times to get there. One be eaten and half to death, chewing him up. But
that's funny.
But he was weak on the kill, that's for sure.
You would think a dog that was running to catch like that would be a little better at it.
He absolutely. I'd step on a lot of them coons on their rear end to keep him from. He'd get them by the wrong end. He didn't care. He just. But I'll tell you another thing about him. I'd bring him into the office down there in my barn, waiting on them guys to show up. He'd sit there on that concrete and want to shake hands. Jason asked me about that the other day. He said, "All his pups." He wanted to know if Jug ever. I said, "Every night." He just sat there and put his paw up there on my leg, wanting me to shake his hand.
Yeah.
And as soon as a coon was dead, he was gone. Now, when that coon was dead on that ground, he didn't hang around, want to fight no more. Or no, he was out of there. You better have your string on him if you didn't want to go hunting again, because he'd leave.
Yeah.
Stretch had a jip over here one night for somebody. Oh, some big guy up there that he hunted some dogs for. Oh, he's got that game farm. got them deer up there fenced in. He does that deer hunting deal.
Russ
Big in
Ballard.
the, you bet. That's who it was.
Yep.
Had a jip, and she treated a coon right in front of Stretch and I made him ride a mule. I said, I ain't walking. Where we're going, I ain't about to walk. Well, he didn't know about this. I said, that old mule's gentle. I said, all you got to do is just step up on there and he'll follow my mule. And anyway, treat a coon, and we're standing there. That jug come up out of the cornfield bottom, never said a word, come up to that tree, saw us and ducked off and took off down the hill there. And before he got to the creek, he was treed down there and had a coon. He didn't like it if one treed a coon on him. He was going to tree one too, you know.
Yeah.
But I never saw a dog on a dead coon that would leave as quick as him. He didn't care no more about fighting or licking or chewing on that dead coon, you know, like some dogs would just stand there forever, and which was good.
Yeah,
that's how a lot of that fighting gets started, you know, over them dead coons.
Oh yeah.
And
now that's something that aggravates me and my call out here. We go round and round usually during kill season, at least once or twice. He wants to pile on a dead one after, you know, I'm trying to carry it out or something.
Mm-hmm.
Me and him, we've had some fights over that, and I tell him.
Now, who's he by?
So he's out of a plot hound male and a leopard jip. It was an accident out here.
Yeah.
Goes back to a bunch of big game leopards from down in West Virginia.
Right.
On the leopard side, and then plot hounds. There's some coon hounds, you know, stock in there, and there's some big game stock in there.
Right.
So.
Right. I would say that old Juck been all right on them cats. Man took him out there and got him on them.
Yeah.
Started him on.
As fast as he was on the track.
Oh, yeah. I saw Wick, another dog that, several years after Jug had passed, 2 or 3 years later, I sold John a leopard dog. It was a really nice rig dog. Better rig dog than he was on the ground, but it was pretty deathly out of the back of the truck. Mm-hmm. He's got a picture. I was looking at an old leopard. Well, it's a coon hound bloodlines.
Yeah.
January 2009. The dog on top of the dog box, I sold Wick.
Okay.
And I think for $650 or $750. And I met him in the road over here one night coming in. I was going out to go hunting. Him and Richard Wilson were coming in. They had 12 or 13 coons in the back of that truck they'd caught with that old dog.
Nice.
Yeah. Did you know Richard Wilson, the guy that hunted with Wick a lot?
No, I didn't.
He could tell you a lot about him. Richard had a real outstanding female out of that Walker cross that John made.
Okay.
And they got her run over here one night, got her killed. But they say she was a crackerjack good one.
Yeah.
I had several guys that hunted with her and knew a coon dog, and they all said she was pretty outstanding. Even John. John said she was a dandy.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're quite different, those leopards.
They are. That's for sure.
They make up. They're easy to break.
Stone Creek Hound Supply, a family-operated business, boasts over 50 years of involvement in hounds. For over 2 decades, they've been dedicated to supplying high-quality hound gear. Their reputation is founded on unparalleled quality and exceptional customer service. Crafted from U.S. source materials, Stone Creek clothing is meticulously manufactured right here in Pennsylvania. Through their commitment to excellence, many of their customers have become lifelong friends.
I was partners with Dwayne Clark on Spring Creek Rock.
Oh, wow.
And him and I partnered on a lot of horses. And I had 5, maybe 6 of those Rock pups. They were older dogs, 2-year-old and 3-year-old. They couldn't back water that jug. I didn't like none of them.
Wow.
Matter of fact, Dwayne come up here to go hunting. And we went on the mules on a big ranch over here, 6,000 acres conservation place. Well, he brought 3 walkers. and they run a deer, run it out of the country. He had to get home, so he come back to the house. And luckily, the only smart thing I ever done in my life, before we left, I put my collars on his dogs. He said, "Oh, they'll be calling you tomorrow, Carr." And I said, "Yeah, I'll get them." So I went around the next day and got them all picked up. I had Rock, had Spring Creek Jill, and Spring Creek Sparky. He said, "Well, go ahead and hunt them, Carr, while you got them up there." And he said, "I'll be up there next week and get them." I said, "All right." I took Rock, loaded him in the dog box, all the way to the place out here where I was going to turn out 4 or 5 miles. He just growled and raised Cain in that dog box. I thought, "Well, you son of a gun." He got on the water on the creek. I never was so disappointed in a dog in my life.
Yeah.
Got him caught and got home. Took Jill the next night and went with another old man out there that had a nice farm, a lot of coon. She treated a coon, and she made about, I'm going to say, 3 to 5 slick trees in a row, and I had enough.
Oh,
I leased her, brought her in. Next night, I took Sparky. Now, they didn't like Sparky because she had a little flag in her tail. She was ticked up, and she was short-eared and monkey-eyed. She was a coon treeing machine. She was the best one. I wouldn't have traded a picture of her for them other two, Rock included. But he got a lot of notoriety about him. Yeah. Everybody liked him. Spring Creek Rocks. Well,
yep.
I had another one that he wouldn't take the water. He wouldn't cross 6 inches of creek water. He'd stand and bark at the creek. And I didn't care for them.
No, not when
but
I don't know how you have a coon dog that can't cross water.
Well, I don't either. I have no clue. But that night, Wendell and them boys were here with them, a gold champion and a silver champion. They're standing at the bank barking, and old Jug sitting across that little old ditch creek. Oh, it was 30, 40 foot across there, and probably 3 foot deep at the deepest. And I shot that coon out, and he brought it to me. But, yeah. I don't know how you get a gold champion that take water. But that's what they told me they were. I didn't see the papers or nothing, but I'm pretty sure they'd had them in hunts and won money with them. But
no, I agree with you. I don't know how you do that either.
To me, those leopards are smart. Even if they don't make a competition dog like Jason's wanting, I know he's wanting something to fire in there quick and be quick and everything. But the ones that don't make it are nice pleasure dogs. Just go out here and take for a little hunt.
Yep.
And the thing about most of them, you get them in and go home when you need to.
Yeah. No, that's why I have them. I need a dog with a good handle. I hunt some small places. I don't have a lot of big country. And a lot of these get-gone walker dogs would get killed where I live. Right. So that's why I like them.
Well, that's one reason I went ahead and priced old Jug guy in Illinois, big horse trainer over there, and race standard bred horses. He was noted for buying them high-dollar dogs. He called me. He heard about him. Well, John Henry told Philip Cullison, and Philip Cullison hunted dogs for this guy.
Okay.
And he said, "What about that leopard dog, Carr? Is he for sale?" And I said, "No, I don't want to sell him." He said, "You'd price him, wouldn't you?" I said, $7,500. "Oh, you don't want to sell him too bad, do you?" And I said, "No." He said, "I'll be over next week." He said, "I'd like to come on hunting." I thought, well, open my big mouth again.
Yep.
He got sick that next week. He never showed up. And Philip called John, told John, said he was sick, wasn't going to be there. Well, Wick got wind of it. And I'd let Wick take him. I told him he's wanting to, he's just sick that he was laying around, wasn't getting hunted every night in the summer. I said, "Take him home, hunt him." I said, "Hunt him up and take him some of them PKC hunts."
Yeah.
I knew he could get part of it. I didn't know if he could get it all. Because there's some pretty good dogs that look, good some nights and stuff. But anyway, he had him about, maybe a week. And him and Wilson had hunted him pretty much every night, most all night. And he come walking in there and he said, I heard you was going to sell them jugs. I said, nah. I said, Tex Motes. Tex Motes was the guy's name. He'd spend whatever it took to get them to. Money didn't matter to him. He had 20 horses in training, and had money. Anyway, he said, I heard you priced him the Motes. I said, yeah. I said, but he's overpriced. I said, $7,500. Well, he said, I'm going to buy him. I said, why would you buy him? I told you take him hunting. I'll just buy him, he said. He was worried to death that Tex Motes would come and go hunting with him and buy him.
Yeah.
And he said, you can hunt. I said, well, there's going to be 2 stipulations. Oh, here we go, he said. I said, no. I said, I want lifetime breeding rights to him. That ain't no problem. He said, you know right where he'll be. And I said, I want him cash. I'm not putting a check in my checking account for a dog for that kind of money. He said, well, give me a couple of days. But he said, he's mine. I said, okay. 2 days later, I'm sitting down there in my office on the desk, and he comes in swinging a sock, had a white sock, and it's full of cash. I still got the check up there in the bank box. I saw it the other day. Jug dog sold Wick. Yep.
That's pretty cool.
That's the story, and that's the truth. A lot of them said, oh, that was baloney and malarkey and everything, but it wasn't. And
well, like you said, back then, that's big. That was big money for a dog.
That was 20 years ago for a guy that's trying to make a living and 3 kids and 2 girls in college. And I always kind of traded them things off if they made something, And
yeah.
But I'd let them come and hunt them. And I sold a guy in Kansas a really nice little black and tan leopard female. I can't think of his name now. That's when I had the other black and tan Ruby. I'd bought a pair off a guy down here in South in the hills. And that old boy, he just thought she was world class. She was a nice little female. But Ruby was better. I liked Ruby better for me.
Yeah.
But I've gotten old anymore. I can't handle that big go yonder stuff. I got to have something around. I've got a little dog down here now out of a daughter of Johnny Reb and a little rig dog that they bred her to. And I should have never sold that daughter of Johnny Reb. I don't know why I done that. Well, I know why. She made $500 and I just sold her. And she went to Arkansas. Some old man got to coming up here buying dogs off of me, and he'd call me, what do you got? He'd drive up here in an old truck, him and his woman, and they'd have a cooler full of sandwiches and water and soda and pay me in cash and take them back to Arkansas. And he'd hunt down there on the bayous or something, he'd call it. Drove a 4-wheeler on the bayous.
Okay.
But that old man's died. But I should have never sold that little Johnny Reb female. She was the hardest street dog I ever heard in my life. Had a good mouth. She was moody. She might go hunting tonight with me and do a real nice job. Tomorrow night, 2 guys pull up with 2 strange dogs. She might follow you for an hour before she'd peel off and go on her own,
Yeah.
But with tree coons, and man, what a powerful tree dog she was. Well, this old dog I got now, he's 8, and he just hunts around. Road just rigs around close, 200 to 300 yards as far as, and not a dog take a track. He's more of a locate and lay up dog, He don't run no tracks like I like, but hell, it's so hard to find anything you like anymore.
Yeah.
They don't come around. I guess Jason's got some young dogs he said are doing really good.
Yeah, he said, I just was talking to him, and he said he's got a couple that he's pretty excited for.
He's getting ready to make a big cross on that female that's up there at Thomas's. I believe. Now, I think that's what he told me.
Okay.
But he's trying to tell me that somebody had some frozen semen out of jug. If there is, I never heard of it. And I wouldn't know who'd have it because I didn't have any. And I'm pretty positive John Wick didn't get any. But there you go. You never know.
I don't know.
I don't either. I told him the other night I sure didn't know about anybody having any semen out of old jug. But the only thing I can tell him, he didn't hurt the breed as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I bought a good dog off a guy named Carl Stokes. Him and his brother had a female they called Lassie. She was half shepherd and half hound.
Okay.
They breed her. They had a Walker dog and a black and tan dog. And however them color them pups, they'd register them. Well, I went up there one night in a blizzard, drove all the way up in there and went hunting with this little dog. It was a year and a half old. And it was sleeping, and I saw him treat 3 coons that night. He wanted $2,000 for him. And I tried to jew him down. I got in the truck and drove off. I probably was up the road 5 miles, and the boy with me, he said, Carr, he said, didn't you like it? I said, yeah, I like that dog. He's a little flag-tail, black and tan dog, had hair on his tail. Not a lot, but flag.
Yeah.
Short-eared, monkey-faced, had the biggest squall mouth you'd want to hear, and was a tree dog. I turned around, went back, and I handed him $2,000 cash, knocked on the door. I said, here, I come to get old Demon. Brought him home. Well, when I left, he said, now here's a set of papers. They're not his, but here's a set of papers. I hunted that dog till he was 6. And a boy come here from South Missouri, kind of a renegade acting guy. And he said, I heard you'd sell your dog. Donnie Brock had told him I'd sell him. And I said, yeah. He said, can we go hunting? I said, yeah. We took him. He treated a couple of coons and done a nice job. And we come back to the office. I just got him out of the dog box and was going to put him in the stall in the barn overnight because it was bad weather. He said, no. He said, leave him there. He said, I'm going to buy your dog. He took that dog to Kirksville to the black and tan sectional. I handed him the papers. I said, now here's the papers I got with him, but they're not right. He took him up there and won everything. Then they turned around and took it away from him. They got talking around there, and somehow or another they ended up taking his trophies and stuff away from him. But that was a nice little dog.
Yeah.
He'd pass for a really good leopard today. He's about a 45, 50-pound little dog. Biggest, sounded like a bear hung in a gate or something. Man, he squalled. And but more of a track running dog and tree dog. Not the best not a locator like old Ruby and Thick Coons or Pepper. If there was 20 coons in 5 acres, they'd get them all. Ruby and old Pepper would.
Yeah.
They just fall trees, you know. A Ruby tree, a lot of coons never say nothing, just old layup. He curl up sleep. And I kind of like that.
Yeah.
But anymore, when you can't walk, you got to have something close you can get around and get to. But I sold that jug. He was 7, and he went plenty of hard for a guy getting crippled up. And I thought, time to pull the trigger, I guess. Yeah. I didn't really want to, but I figured Wick would do more with him than what he got done. But he got a lot done, I guess.
Yeah.
He raised 2 or 3 nice dogs. He had dogs called a little dog called Chaps. It was a nice little, real honest little pleasure dog.
Okay.
Good to train pups with. Then he had a dog, Camo, something, Cowboy maybe it was. Yeah, Camo Cowboy, I believe was that dog's name. He was a little more like Jug. He'd go hunting harder. And he raised several pretty nice dogs out of him.
Yeah, for sure.
But
so. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to tell me the story of Jug. Like I said, I've heard some rumors through the years, but when Jason sent me that message and said, "Hey, you should talk to this guy. He's the guy that owned Jug most of his life," I said, "Send me his contact info. I'd love to hear it."
Yeah, well, I hope I filled you in, which I'm sure if you read any of the ads on him, they all talked about him. Wick's out of it. Wick don't own a dog.
Yeah.
John's health's really bad. He's not in good shape at all.
I heard that recently.
Him and I are the same age.
Okay.
Yep, we're the same age. And I can remember when he came to town, he had an old red pickup that you could throw a cat through every door and fender on it. It was just rotted down. Had a rack on the back and had a little gray mule. And had them walker dogs, moved up here in the country.
Yeah.
I hunted with crowbar. I hunted with pretty much a lot of them. But he got intrigued when I got to take an old Jug with him.
Yeah.
But like I said, I didn't think he'd ever hurt the breed any. And I wasn't out to promote leopard dogs, I just had one. That's about what it amounted to, and I had a pretty good one, I thought.
Yeah. Good deal.
But I didn't buy him with intent. I never had seen one. I'd never seen one till I had Jack brought him out here. I thought, man. But did you ever see the book that Wick put out, that Wick's Camo Judge, The Complete Information?
No.
Well, he wrote that in 2002. There was a copyright on it. Just a minute. Oh, he wrote it 2002 in the issue of the Full Cry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I got it out here and was looking at it. I kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
But he tells the story all in there, too.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I couldn't agree with was the possum deal. He said he treats possums after he never treats no possums when I had him after that one little episode.
That's funny.
I just can't quit. I need to, but my body wants to, but my mind just won't let me yet.
I understand.
It's you got to be pretty tough to survive these golden years, as they call them. The way I find it.
I've been told that.
Yeah, it's not for sissies. I can tell them that. But I'm still trying, still always looking around, just checking around different places and seeing what's going on. But I appreciate you calling.
I appreciate you taking the time and telling me about Jug. That, like I said, it's a very interesting story, and he's even today, he's still a very big name in the leopard breed.
Oh, I think he's in a lot of them's pedigrees. Yeah,
I'd say
from what I've seen and heard,
you're hard pressed to find a leopard without him.
Yeah, I'd go buy Wicks and get a cooner and different books. And I just let my subscriptions run out and kind of quit. And there for a while, I did quit. It didn't go for a year or so, and then I got the fever again and got a hold of this dog I've got. Anyway, but I hope it's some good thoughts for you.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate it.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talking Media. And until next time, keep them talking in the timber.